Well, back to hard numbers. How many queries would you say you're receiving on average in maybe a week? And then how many new clients are you taking on per year?
I don't even know how many I receive in a week. Last check, my inbox on Query Manager was at 600. And we've been using it since March, and I was pretty on top of answering everything right away in March, and I was going to stay that way. And then they just started coming in too fast. In terms of new clients, so far this year, I think this year I've only taken on one so far. I made some offers this year, but I think just one client this year. Last year I took on three or four. I can't remember now. Who else can not remember 2020? I'm sure
that last year that maybe would have distracted you.
I was very excited. So last January, we went to San Diego, and then I got back and I turned right around and went to New York. And I was super excited because I got to go to New York and attend the Tor Nightfire launch party and meet the editors and all of that stuff. And it was the same weekend as SFF Pit, which is one of my favorite Twitter pitch events. And so I was sitting in my hotel reading tweets and then queries from SFF Pit. And I was like, this is going to be the year. As I mentioned, I have a 2-year-old, so he was starting daycare last year. That was part of the plan. So 2020 was going to be my year. I was back from having a kid. I was going to throw my all into work. And then COVID happened. So I did manage to sign one client before COVID really got running. And then I did sign a second client not that far into COVID because they were actually featured in a local paper for a COVID-related project that they had done. And then I definitely signed another, might have even been another SFF Pit client last year. Oh, and I signed a horror client last year. So I did sign 4 clients in 2020, as bad as 2020 was. So.
Wow, it's that sooner or later every conversation leads back to the pandemic, at least a little bit. So here is an unbelievably impossible question that I'm going to ask anyway. An esteemed audience will understand that you can't speak for publishing; you can only speak for your experience. But how do you see the pandemic, and now hopefully, fingers crossed, the post-pandemic? How do you see that impacting publishing, and how has that impacted your business?
Well, I mean, at the beginning of it, I was definitely not the only person who was in a panic because I wasn't sure what it was going to mean. And I think a lot of people were of the same mindset that I was. My immediate thought was, oh my gosh, they're not going to acquire anything unless it's a known quantity, unless it's a known, bestseller. It's somebody who's already established their career. Like they're not going to buy anything. So fortunately, that was not the case. Also, fortunately, bookstore numbers were really good last year. So I think it didn't take long for publishers to sort of go back to not business as usual, because obviously things have changed a lot, but at least in terms of acquiring projects and things like that. I do think there was a knee-jerk reaction right at the beginning. Everybody sort of like, nope, we're going to wait and see what happens. We're not going to commit to anything right now. But I think that things turned out as well as they probably could have. Just in terms of now we're definitely seeing sort of business as close to normal as it's probably going to get for a while. A lot of people are still working from home, but people are still having acquisitions meetings, books are still being bought, big deals are still being made, lots of regular deals are still being made, lots of books are still coming out in the pipeline. So yeah, I think I definitely thought That's it. I'm gonna have to find a new career. Publishing is dead. I didn't really think that, but I tend to be very worst case scenario.
Well, heck, I thought the whole country might be dead for a minute there. So that publishing
right?
was
right. We're all living the stand now. So yeah, things turned out a lot better than my worst case scenario in my brain, and I think I'm optimistic about what's going on. I mean, there are other things going on, you know, certainly there's more condensing going on. The big five are now going to become the big four. But I think overall what 2020 showed was that people are still reading a lot. Certainly enough for publishers to realize that there's still money to be made in this industry. And so, at least for a little while, books are still being sold. So I still have a job.
People have rediscovered their love of reading from so many nights at home, and that's going to continue.
And so many adaptations coming out, and you know, people running out to get the books that those are based on, and yeah.
So hopefully, it's going to be all great news for publishing going forward. Are you back in the office now, or are you working from home?
I still mostly work from home. We have a shared office, but we usually work from home anyway. And I'm outside of Denver, and our office is in South Denver, so I just kind of our new norm is Zoom meetings instead of, you know, getting together at the office, and so I think it'll probably stay that way. It makes things a whole lot more convenient. I can be at home working instead of on the road 45 minutes to South Denver and back. And I was going to back up for a minute too and say, again, I am very worst case scenario. So I tend to have a more optimistic view about things than I actually let on. I was working in bookstores and then working in publishing whenever ebooks started coming out, and everybody said like, oh, that's it, print is dead, you know, and I never felt that way. So